This happened to me a few weeks ago while I was out late at night with my cousin and two of my buddies. Around 12:30, I got dressed to leave. I made small talk with my brother-in-law as I put my boots on. "I'm gonna go hang out with Shayna and grab some food," I explained. Logan nodded as he lit a cigarette. "I have to be at work by 12 tomorrow, so make sure you're back by 10 in the morning," he replied. I nodded. "I probably will be back way before that," I said as I left. My hometown was about a 15-minute drive from where I was currently staying, but I made the drive a lot, so I didn't mind it. It was a little bit creepy outside, so I put on some music to ease my mind. Around 12:50 a.m., I pulled up to my cousin's house and turned the headlights off as not to draw attention to myself. She had texted me to inform me that she was sneaking out and I had to have the lights off in case her parents woke up, so I did as I was told. She got in the car and gave me a quick hug. "Keep the headlights off until we're past my house," she instructed. I nodded and slowly drove forward. We got onto 10th Street and we started talking and laughing, listening to music as we drove around. 20 minutes later, we drove down a dirt road and parked in front of a house surrounded by trees. 5 minutes later, my buddies Caden and Jacob came running out to the car and got in. "Hey guys, long time no see. How the hell have you been?" I asked, smiling. Jacob looked back at me a bit in shock. "Carson? Jesus, dude, I barely recognized you," he replied, patting my back. My cousin nudged my shoulder and pointed in the direction at the dark house. "Caden's mom is watching us. We better go," she said. I turned the car around and drove off. 2:30 rolled around and we were still driving. We tried finding a party, but we had no success, so we just drove. "Hey guys, I have somewhere we can go," Caden chimed in. Shayna looked at him, then Jacob. "You know where I'm talking about?" he asked. "Yeah, I do," she answered. I frowned in confusion. "What are you guys talking about?" I asked. The whole car went quiet. "Tell me, please," I pushed. Jacob leaned forward. "It's called Ghost Bridge," he began. I glanced at him in the rearview mirror, still confused. "It's a bridge several miles out of town and it's haunted, and if you go out there close to 3 a.m., shut the car off and are dead silent, when you restart the car, there will be handprints all over it," he continued. I didn't like the thought of an unseen force or forces putting their hands on the car, but my curiosity got the best of me. "Who leaves behind the handprints?" I asked. "The spirits of the people put to death there during the Salem witch trials. They're trying to get the car off the bridge," my cousin explained. By this point, Caden and Jacob were both sitting forward. "Want to check it out?" Caden asked. I thought about it for a moment. "If we go, we have to go close to 3 a.m. or it won't work," Jacob explained. I nodded even though I had a bad feeling. "We can go check it out," I answered. Around 2:30, we started towards the bridge. It was off on a complex dirt road that had a lot of twists and turns. As I drove, my cousin Caden and Jacob were passing a blunt back and forth, talking loudly. I tried my best to shut their voices out so I could concentrate on where I was going. The more I drove, the darker it got. It didn't even feel like a normal dirt road. It felt more like a dark and foreboding cave swallowing the car whole. I looked behind me and the comforting sight of another car's headlights was nowhere to be seen. It was just us. 5 minutes later, we came to an old bridge. As I slowly drove the car onto it, I heard steel creaking and old but sturdy wood planks shifting. "The bridge will hold us," Jacob reassured. I nodded and parked the car. "Okay, now what?" I asked as I shut the car off completely. "Now we have to be completely silent and sit in the car for 10 minutes, but pay attention," my cousin instructed. I took a deep breath and leaned back in the driver's seat. Everyone in the car was completely silent. A few minutes went by and nothing happened. I was beginning to think everyone in the car was just messing with me. I said, "Nothing's happening. You guys were just messing with me." My cousin covered my mouth quickly and mouthed the words, "Shut the fuck up." Suddenly, we heard heavy footsteps walking down the bridge towards the car, followed with a heavy bang that echoed through the countryside. We all looked at each other with wide eyes as another pair of heavy footprints came down the bridge towards the car. My cousin held up 2 fingers as to keep track of how many people were walking towards us. The footsteps continued to multiply until my cousin was holding all of her fingers up. Then the noises stopped, and for what seemed like forever, it was completely silent. All that could be heard was all of our hearts pounding. It continued to stay silent. I quickly hit the auto locks on the car so whatever was out there could not get in. It went silent again. Then the latch on Jacob's door started moving, slowly at first, then faster and more aggressive. Jacob froze as whatever was messing with his door started tapping on his window. Then it went silent again. We all breathed a sigh of relief because we thought it was over, but it wasn't. Without any warning, the car started shaking violently and something started pounding on every window, desperately trying to get in. "We have to go," I said as I reached for the ignition. My cousin grabbed my hand. "No, we have to wait for it to stop," she replied. "If we don't leave, whatever is out there will keep trying to get in," I shouted as I turned the car over. But it did nothing. Then it went silent. No banging on the windows, no fog, nothing. It just seemed to stop. I tried turning the car on again, and once again, it didn't start. Suddenly, we heard a low rumble that went away as quickly as it came. We looked at each other, then the bridge started shaking violently. Everyone in the car screamed. "Fuck this, I'm getting us out of here," I mumbled as I turned the car on, and what I saw before me made me freeze. Shining in the headlights was the shadow of a tall man. He had fiery red eyes that were looking at me and only me. He stared at me for a long time and seemed to put me in a trance. He curled his lips into a devious smile as another shadow formed beside him. He kept staring at me, then slowly lifted his hand to point at the car. I blinked and snapped out of it and threw the car into reverse as the other shadows rushed the car. Everyone in the car was screaming and yelling, trying to process what just happened. "What the fuck was that?" Shayna shouted. "I don't know, but I am not stopping till we're back in town," I shouted back. I sped down the dirt road, and the whole time I drove, it felt like that thing was following us. I didn't dare look back. The further we got from the bridge and the closer to town we got, the more everyone calmed down. "What the fuck happened out there?" Caden asked. "It's real and we aren't going back," I replied. Shayna frowned. "We have to go back, that was awesome," she said. "No, whatever is there, it's too dangerous and it isn't good," I began. "And it didn't help that you were making jokes about it beforehand," I finished. The car went silent for a bit. "We should go home, it's late," Shayna said. Everyone nodded in agreement and I took everyone home. I didn't leave town for another hour. How could I when that thing was burned into my mind? Eventually I drove home and went to sleep, but I had a nightmare about that thing and its smile. Since then, I've been trying to forget the incident and move on with my life, but as of last week, strange things have began to happen. Stuff being knocked off the desk in the middle of the room, footsteps, cold drafts, and feeling like I'm being watched. A few nights ago, the nightmares about that thing started happening again, but this time it's not on the bridge. It towers over me as I sleep, smiling and staring at me. I think that whatever was on that bridge that night found its way into my home, and it wants me to know it's coming for me.